It's now time to enjoy one of the things that makes obtaining your pilot's license truly rewarding, and that is cross-country flying. Now that is beautiful. Let's take a look at a few of the decisions you'll make as you plan your trip. And the first decision in trip planning usually involves choosing a destination airport. Often you'll have a choice between a busy airport that serves air carriers and other jet traffic versus smaller airports that have little or no large, fast airplanes. Many pilots prefer the friendlier atmosphere at a less busy airport over dealing with the congestion and complex airspace, regardless of the services available at a busy airport. But for your cross-country training flights, your instructor will probably assign destinations because they meet a particular training objective. Now let's take a look at some of the decisions for a flight from San Diego to Blythe, California. As you can see on the chart, Blythe is an uncontrolled airport with fuel, and its longest runway is 6,500 feet, and its near sea level elevation of 397 feet, and there is also a VOR nearby. Hey, it should be suitable for your Skyhawk, but you might want to check the airport facility directory for more details like runway slope and the airport remarks, which will tell you anything that is pertinent to this particular airport. Another decision is your choice of departure time, and generally earlier in the day is better for flying. And why is that? Well, after a full day of the ground heating under the summer sun, afternoons tend to be a little bumpier in the air. So now let's choose a route from San Diego to Blythe, and a really good place to start that is on one of those large wall charts if one's available, or a WAC chart. Look at this, you get the whole view right here. You can see the major factors that may affect your route on these big charts, and then use sectionals and terminal area charts for the more detailed planning. Now, as the saying goes, the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. So we should just plan our flight that way, right? Well, yes and no. You probably want to consider the most direct route when you're doing your planning, but you don't automatically pick it. And why is that? Well, you may not save much time, and it may not be feasible or safe due to airspace or terrain limitations. Now, be very careful with routes through mountainous terrain. Higher elevations may not give you comfortable performance margins with your airplane. They may also have hazardous weather and winds that you could avoid by choosing a route around the mountains instead of going over the top. It's also a good idea, when possible, to plan a route that stays near civilization. And by that we mean along roads, here's a desert highway, or near towns. Because if you have any kind of emergency or problem en route and you have to make a quick diversion, it's nice if civilization is already pretty close. Another factor in route planning is to look for alternate airports that are downwind, downhill, and have multiple runways. That way, you don't push the performance capability of your airplane in order to reach them, and when you get there, you have more options. It's not uncommon to have airspace actually dictate your route. You might see anything from busy airport-related Class Bravo or Charlie airspace to restricted areas or wildlife refuges along the way. As you know, you have several ways to navigate on a cross-country, but your instructor may, for the purpose of giving you experience with all of them, ask you to use different ones during different portions of your flight. Consider all available methods in your planning, including flying direct to nav aids like VORs or NDBs, or even simply following published air routes. And of course, look for easy-to-use terrain features for pilotage, section lines, rivers, highways, or even prominent mountain peaks. They often provide the most enjoyable routes and help you know where you are and keep track of your progress. So, let's choose a route from our San Diego departure airport, Montgomery Field down here, all the way to Blythe, California. And looking at the WAC chart for the area, a direct route certainly has a lot of the things we've been talking about. Look at this. We've got mountains, we've got Class B airspace, we have military operations areas, we've got restricted airspace, a large body of water, and even a wilderness area. Heck, all we need is Air Force One and we'd have the whole enchilada. So our plan will have to accommodate them all. The exact way you choose your route will in large part determine how your trip goes. Do you choose easy-to-find checkpoints? Do you bracket your course on each side and plan an overshoot boundary so you won't get lost? Well, to answer these important questions, let's start with the San Diego terminal area chart. And ladies and gentlemen, here's Montgomery Field. We want to choose our first checkpoint close to our departure airport. And San Diego has a large stadium near Montgomery Field located right here, and it makes an easy-to-see nearby checkpoint. There's no need to draw a straight line between Montgomery Field and the stadium because you will have to follow the normal traffic pattern departure procedures leaving the airport anyway. You will just aim for that first checkpoint as soon as you can after takeoff and use it as your starting point for the rest of this cross-country trip. So, now we're going to head off generally northeast from this point, and we need to avoid all this Class Bravo airspace in which we're located. But notice, that direction takes us through this Class Delta airspace, which has a 2,900-foot ceiling. So you would have to either contact Gillespie Field Tower, that's this airport, or climb above 2,900 feet to be clear of the Class Delta airspace. You should be able to climb over the Class Delta ceiling, but note that there's also a Class Bravo airspace above you that has a 4,800-foot floor, so you need to stay below that. That means you need to fly between 2,900 feet and 4,800 feet here unless you want to talk to somebody. Now, here's a very prominent landmark northeasterly here, El Cajon Mountain. But instead of going right over El Cajon Mountain, let's go just to the south of it to the El Capitan Reservoir, which is located right here, and it's also a distinctive landmark. And the dam there will be an easy-to-find checkpoint. There's a dam right here. It's very prominent. And you can see that we have chosen 3 features relatively close together to start with, so you'll be sure of getting on course from the very beginning of your cross-country trip. Now let's change course here and head more north-northeast up to the Julian Vortac, which makes a great checkpoint also. This mountain is pretty prominent with the Vortac very near the top of it, so you could use your VOR, or I recommend you look out the window of the airplane to find a large bowling pin with dirt all around it. That's pretty foolproof. You can see that the terrain is climbing from the reservoir up through this river valley, but since you're clear of the Class B floor, you'll be climbing too. 7,500 feet will comfortably clear this Mount Julian and is the correct altitude, by the way, for this northeasterly direction flying VFR. Now, from the Julian Vortac, you still can't go directly to Blythe. Don't you hate that? Well, you can't because there's this restricted area, Romeo 2507 North, and all the way there you've got a couple of MOAs and all kinds of activity. The military often uses live ordnance in restricted areas like this one. So if you're like me, you want to keep your Cessna away from ammunition and you want to continue northeast from Julian to miss that. And this is perfect because you use the airway Victor 460, and this does very well heading right up toward another very good checkpoint, the Chirrocco Summit Airport. And you'll see that right where you're going to turn. And as you head up that way, you can also use the Borrego Valley Airport as a checkpoint. Here it is right here to help confirm that you're tracking on course. Now, airports can make good checkpoints, but sometimes they're hard to spot. You can help yourself out by having big checkpoints like the shore of a lake or long checkpoints like roads and railroad tracks to help you navigate. For instance, you have this large body of water called the Salton Sea as a very prominent landmark. And I don't know about you, but I love it when that propeller wind flows through what's left of my hair. On the western side of the Salton Sea, you have a divided highway that would make a good checkpoint to use for calculating your ground speed because you cross it at almost exactly a 90-degree angle. And on the eastern side, there's a smaller highway and a railroad track along the shore which changes direction about 60 degrees almost exactly where you cross them. Along here, this road to the left and this road to the right make terrific boundaries to parallel your course and provide the boundaries on either side. Now, once you reach the Chirocco Summit Airport, you'll have this major highway, I-10, which serves as an overshoot boundary telling you to turn on your course. And as you can see, I-10 is a very prominent divided highway that leads right to Blythe. In fact, if you're driving, that's the way you go. Notice that there are also several airports along your route, and I don't know about you, but my comfort level goes up a notch when I'm near an airport out in a remote area like this. And here we have a railroad crossing a highway on our chart, and that is a beautiful progress checkpoint on this leg, and this is what it looks like when you look outside the aircraft. Next, there's a road with a power line on each side that makes a sharp bend, here it is right here, right along your route. And there's a divided highway just to the north of it, a great checkpoint. This funnels us right into Blythe, ladies and gentlemen, and the last checkpoint is an easy one. The Blythe Airport with our overshoot boundary to the right here, the river, a Colorado River, just beyond the airport. And if we look down and watch folks boating on the river, then we've gone too far. So you can see that by working step by step from the big picture of a wall chart or a WAC to the sectional chart and then to our terminal area chart, you can choose a route that avoids unfriendly terrain and airspace that helps keep you from getting lost out there, Pilgrim.